So, the first picture is out by Whitehall. It's on what we call the Point of Rocks. And it happens to be in what we call an Indian cave. You can see the paintings. The area we're going to be talking about is just...
Hang on, just a minute. I don't think that mic is on.
Okay.
No, it's not.
It's on. Yeah, I don't know. It should. Sorry about this testing.
Yes.
Are you guys hearing that?
No.
You're not hearing that at all. That's really weird. Now, hold on.
See, it's not going to be on YouTube.
Just sit down.
Okay?
There.
There.
I think
Okay, can everybody hear?
There we go.
Anyway, this is the Indian cave at the Point of Rocks, what we call the Point of Rocks on the Jefferson River. And just kind of let you know, this is in the Whitehall area. There's a lot of history in the Whitehall area that hardly anybody knows about. So the title of this, talk is "The Unknown Stories of the Other Parrot." The reason I put this picture in there, that's kind of looking out of the Indian cave. You're looking west across the Jefferson River. You're looking out into the sun, and it's kind of symbolic of the time period. The time period we're going to be talking about is the 1865s on up, the time of the Civil War. And so the Civil War was a pretty dark time in our nation, and this was just when the Civil War was getting out, and we're trying to make things better. That's the time period we're going to be in. This is also another picture, really nice picture by Sandrew here. Happens to be of the same area, the Jefferson Valley. Some of you people may have driven past this along the Jefferson River by Renova. This is going to be all part of the story that's to come. This is the rafters in a building that is there, is associated with the Parrot Copper and Silver Company. But we're going to go on a long journey here to make a big circle. So I want to talk about this young kid by the name of Ignatius. He was born in 1853 in a little country called Alsace-Lorraine, which is a little country in Europe. It was kind of between France and Germany. It used to be a country they fought all over all the time. France and Germany. It was either French or it was either German. This happens to be his birth certificate in French. And born in 1853. By the time Ignatius was 11, 12 years old, he already became an orphan. Him and his younger brother were orphaned because their parents passed away. And so this is a story of his immigration to America. And he came with some uncles to Galena, Illinois. And Galena, Illinois was in 1865 was a big mining town, a lot of history in Galena, Illinois. Galena is an actual mineral that they were mining there. The Indians a long time ago, when the ancient people used to mine it. It was a site of a major mineral lode, lead mines, things like that. Also a site right next to the Mississippi River where a lot of steamboat business was involved. So just some of the people of Galena, Illinois. Ulysses F. Grant was born in Galena, Illinois. Wild Bill Hickok in 1837 was born in Homer, Illinois, which was Troy Grove, Illinois. And you'll find out in this talk that it's kind of funny because sometimes you end up all connected, you don't even know it. I was giving a talk in Whitehall for the museum, and people, we lose our connections over time. And I happened to mention the Galena, Illinois story, and a person in my audience after I gave the talk, they came up running up to me. My grandparents were in Galena, Illinois about the same time yours were, in 1865. So anyway, that gal lives in Whitehall, Montana, with my neighbor. Anyway, so Ignatius come with some uncles to Galena, Illinois, by the name of Ulrich, his mother's brothers. And they came into Galena, Illinois. A few of them were stonemasons, all kinds of different trades. And Ignatius, at the age of 12 years old, had to do something. So he became an apprentice wheelwright. He started learning the business of making wagon wheels. And this was quite an industrious area because everything was coming out of the Civil War, and you were kind of coming into the Industrial Revolution. You kind of had all kinds of mineral exploration, and all kinds of things were being built. And so there was all kinds of trades, wheelwrights, stonemasons, the builders of America. So Ignatius was apprenticed for 3 years, and for those 3 years apprenticeship, he got $100 after 3 years. So anyway, in his story, you probably realize that he learned a lot right here that he carried on when he came to Montana. He also, about in the a little later in his life, he went back to Alsace-Lorraine. Well, in about 1870s, it was in war. So when he went back there, he found out that he was a renegade because he was French. The Germans just took over. There was a war back there, the Prussian War. And so he decided that him and some friends got in a skirmish, kind of got away from the deal, swam the river, decided this ain't no place for me. I'm headed to America. So he came back to America, and all kinds of things were going on. So him and some friends decided, I think we'll head to Montana. So they were on a wagon train. This is the Prussian War back in his old country. So he got on a wagon train with a bunch of other guys, and he started for Montana. Probably about the age of 22, 23 years old. And just a lot of the experiences that he had on that wagon train. Probably being a wheelwright, he was a great help. And then the other thing is just all kinds of people that you're always meeting. So one of the stories is that Ignatius, him and his friends came to Deadwood, South Dakota about an hour after Hickok got shot. So they also kind of stayed around there and panned for gold. The gold that he panned for happened to be made into a ring for his future wife. Some of the things that were going on at the same time period, this is about 1876 is when Hickok got shot. Also, you had the last stand, Custer's last stand. So Ignatius and friends came through the area of the battle about a little less than a year after the Custer's battle happened. And they were able to find they kind of explored it, and they found quite a few things, but they found a .44 rifle in the creek. And I don't know what they ever did with it, but we don't know. Anyway, a lot of things were going on in Montana about the time in the Montana area. 1877, you have Chief Joseph making his run. So you're back in the Wild West is when the time is. Bozeman comes into Bozeman. This is a picture of Bozeman Main Street in 1872. So, he's just 5 years after that. Nothing's pretty much changed. You're coming in with wagons. On the trips, he talks about having battles with some of the Indians and losing a few people and all kinds of experiences getting to Bozeman, Montana. I think probably the plan was at that time, you've got Virginia City going on, you've got Bannock, you got all the big gold discoveries, and everybody had gold fever. And it was a new era in United States of America. So it was just the excitement of the times. For some reason, he decided kind of to maybe tie up in Bozeman, Montana. So he was always kind of a jack of all trades. Ignatius, I don't know, he just had the knack for getting in the right things at the right time, I guess. But he kind of got in the cattle business. He was in the sheep business. He was instrumental in bringing some of the first sheep from California into Montana to help upgrade the Montana herds of sheep. Just the times. Here's a deal that I found in Madison County Clerk and Recorder's office, kind of just by accident. So this is a notice of appropriation for a water right and a notice of appropriation for a mining claim. There's two different pieces of paper. We got them all in paper here, but there was also a mining claim that was called the Davy Crockett Plaster. But I want you to notice who the guys are that are part of this mining claim. Ignatius Kountz or Joseph Kountz, okay? Samuel Crockett, Samuel H. Crockett. So I wonder if they're connected to Davy Crockett. Huh? Who knows? I mean, why would they do this? Okay, so, hi Mark. Anyway, just some of the history. There's the plaster claim that they located. There's the signers on. And you know, back then everybody kind of worked with everybody else. You were either shareholders or partners or in these mining claims. You were the labor, you were the guys trying to make it big. Right? So in 1879, Ignatius goes up to Fort Benton, Montana to pick his wife up off of, or his future wife, up off the steamboat. And she talks about the buffalo herd swimming the Missouri River. And so later on, this Ignatius proposes to this gal and gives her the ring that he made out of the Dakota gold. Okay. 1883, you got the trains come in. The first train finally made it to Bozeman, Montana. Not very many years. It's just amazing. You're talking about a railroad, iron, miles, work, labor. In 1883, it got to Bozeman, Montana. So Ignatius was one of the first people involved in shipping cattle out of the Gallatin Valley. 9 loads of sheep and 11 loads of cattle, shipping them back east to Chicago on the train. So the train was very instrumental in developing Montana, and he was kind of part of that. He was also part of the streetcars of Montana, Bozeman, Montana. It was called the Gallatin Light, Power, and Railway Company. He owned this at one time. And this is this orphan boy of 12 years old, okay? How he did all this kind of stuff, I don't know. Electric power. Actually, if you study this history, all these little power companies finally incorporated. There was a Madison River Power Company, this Gallatin Power Company, the Gallatin Light and Power Company. They all, Great Falls Power Company, Butte Power Company, all these little power companies finally went together and formed the Montana Power Company. Okay, Ignatius got involved in the coal business. There used to be a coal mine, used to have a coal mine in what we call Trail Creek, Montana. Trail Creek, Montana is over between Livingston and Bozeman, going over the hill to, from Bozeman to Livingston. If you head off to the south there, there's Trail Creek. Trail Creek was all full of coal mining towns. Coal was the power for Bozeman and Livingston, Montana. Heated your house, heated your business. There was towns, there was little towns up in that Trail Creek area. The town of Chestnut, the town of Strohs, Cokeville or something like that. Anyway, there was quite about 3 or 4 little towns up there. And it was all producing coal for Gallatin County and Park County. Anyway, just down the road, just down the trail, down the road back then, was a little cabin my grandpa used to talk about when he was a kid. He walked down to that little cabin. It happened to be owned by Frank Buttry. That was where the first Buttry food store started, was in Trail Creek, Montana. So I don't know, you guys all remember Buttry's food store? Yeah. And that's where it started, was Trail Creek, Montana. Frank Buttry and a Dyer, I think, or something. Anyway, they went on up to Havre, formed the Buttry food stores in Montana.
Wow.
So anyway, back in the day, the main route into the Jefferson Valley and also the main route for Virginia City was through Norris, Montana. Here's an old stage company, the Red Bluff Stage Company, that went between, Bozeman, Virginia City, the Norris country, into Virginia City, down around what we call our country, the Pointed Rocks, sometimes with a stagecoach route, Sappyton. Anyway, that was the main route in there. And I have one of these deals, I happened to find this at a gun show in Whitehall, Montana, one of these old stage, but one of these has and I don't know if this shows it here, probably not on this one, W.A. Clark signed in to write the stake.
Wow.
Anyway, that used to be the main route. The main route was through Norris, Montana, from Bozeman to Norris. Today's, it'd take you 49 minutes today from Bozeman, to the Norris country. But today, or back then, it was like, Grandpa used to tell me a few things about it, but it'd take, like a day or so to get to Norris, and then a day and a half or something to get around to where he was. And there used to be a hotel in Norris, Montana that they stayed over. It was lit with candles. In fact, that's what ended up burning the hotel.
Of course.
So anyway, that's the route that was the popular route back then, from Bozeman to Norris in that country. Also, I want to mention here the Madison River Power Company was involved, which is the energy from the Madison Dam up there, which was going to Bozeman and eventually come to Butte. A lot of power was generated out of that canyon. This is a warranty deed for Ignatius starts purchasing ground, and this happens to be between the Kountz Bridge out there in Whitehall and the Slaughterhouse Bridge in 1903. He was also one of the first, was instrumental and involved in building the first bridge across the Jefferson River.
Where is that?
Pardon?
That first bridge, is that the old Renova Bridge?
No, that's I don't have we have a picture of the old Renova Bridge, but I just picked that picture.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, we're back into Whitehall, Montana. And what was going on there with the Parrot, Silver, and Copper Company. There's only 2 buildings left, and that's the bottom of the smokestack over there. And what was involved here is people don't realize that your Parrot company in this town of Butte, Montana, was also building a deal out there in Whitehall, Montana. What was driving this was a smelter for all the mineral in the area. And what was driving that was they needed power, they needed water. So the Jefferson River was one of the obvious choices. So here is the corporation papers, and I found these both in Jefferson County and Madison County, but it's the corporation papers of the Parrot, Silver, and Copper Company. And you'll see a few of the names at the top here: Hauser, Farrell. Down here you'll see Hauser and Holter. They probably are the guys that had to do with your Hauser and Holter Dam. So this corporation was formed in the 1880s, early part of the 1880s. I think the year is 1880. Okay, so Montana's still a territory. You don't have Silverboat County, it's Deer Lodge County. This is recorded in that county. It's in, a copy of this is in the archives here. And there's the date, May 21st, 1880. So from that time on, there was there was a lot of competition going on here for those smelters. You had all this ore and mineral, but you didn't have any smelters. So you had a lot of things going on here. So these guys incorporated, and one of their plans was they started selling shares. Here's a certificate. Here's a shareholder certificate. Here's a list of the shareholders in this corporation. A lot of people going together, making a big gamble. Smaller shareholders. This is what they started in Whitehall, Montana. This is a Parrot Silver and Copper Company. And this is the smelter that they built. And this all started about, it was over several years. It started about 1885 with the purchase of land for the ditch. Okay, so here's what's going on here. Oh, excuse me. Oops. Okay, I got a point here someplace. You've got a ditch coming along this hillside. What you're doing is dropping it down through some pipes. This is a power plant. The power plant was the Madison River Power Company. It was the company that worked on this, or built this deal. So they're generating power off this point, at the Point of Rocks, Jefferson River. And they're dropping the water down through this to generate power. There's the Jefferson River. Here's a stomping plant. And actually, there's a railroad that comes in here, so I do have a picture someplace. There's a railroad car brought back into this building. And what was going on, this was going to be for the area. You got the Golden Sunlight Mine out there, and you've got the Mayflower Mine, and you've got all these other Highland Mine. All the ore out there was going to come into here to be smelted, okay? So that's the start of the Parrot Silver and Copper Company. Okay, there's a picture of what that used to be. That's the bottom of the smokestack. Smokestack was 200 foot high, sitting on an overlooking hill, overlooking the Jefferson River. And that's just the inside, oh, excuse me. That's just the inside of this deal right here. So this is a picture of the construction. And I want you to notice that's the they're building that building on the side. You can see over here, you can see there's two river bridges. The buildings here that the workers stayed in. This is the building of the power plant. You got horses, Fresnos, men, gin poles. And they're lifting all these granite blocks into place. Those granite blocks aren't light, 200 pounds, probably a ton a piece or something. Anyway, what went on here is the Parrot Silver and Copper Company patented, and this is about this is over several years, but this is about 1879 or something like that. This is a patent for the Parrot Silver and Copper Company quarry, Parrot Quarry. Anyway, today it's called the Welsh Quarry. Up here on Pipestone Pass, over on the other side of Pipestone Pass. If you go where the railroad is, there's a quarry back in there. And this is what it looks like today. There's granite buildings, and this is the granite back there. This is kind of south of Spy Rock, out on the Spy Rock Flats. Okay, so you'll notice the granite is all in layers, and it's all already this thick, made in layers naturally. So all these guys went in here and they just broke it in pieces, made it so they could haul it. And there's actually a railroad spur that came into here. And I keep getting off that. So they hauled it from that spur on the big Pipestone Creek, Spy Rock Flats, over to the granite, or over to the Gaylord Spur, which is by Renova. And the train actually came in, and this is all the granite that's being used to build this outfit, the Parrot Silver and Copper Company. So where I live right around this area, so where I live, these buildings are no longer there, but there was actually 4 of these buildings that were built with granite foundations. That building just has the foundation left, that building's gone. This is just a picture of the Renova store at the Parrot, over across the river from the Parrot Silver and Copper Company. This town was actually called Gaylord after the superintendent of the mining operation, okay, of the smelter operation. Okay, this was the office building, which used to be called the Parrot Castle or Kountz Castle, whatever you want. Anyway, this deal here is the assay office part of the building. And this building used to sit up across from the smokestack in the field there. That was the vault. So when I was pretty little, I stayed in this building with my grandfather. I can remember sliding down the banister. Anyway, this is the picture looking south. This is the picture looking north. There's the vault. Here, when I knew it, this was the kitchen. This was the bedrooms. But these were all office. It was the office building, essentially, for the Parrot Silver and Copper Company, out there in Whitehall. So you're talking the same company that was in here in Butte, Montana. Did you guys know this? No. Butte, Montana? Huh? Judy, you cheat. Anyway, this was the horse barn that was built at the time. Now these barns, I figure, are probably the barns that are left, this barn and another one, they're probably at least 128 years old. So the granite came from the Pipestone Quarry, Parrot Quarry over at Pipestone Quarry. There was a brick yard, they called it a brick yard. And I don't know if they just hauled brick into the yard or they made the brick there. There's two stories on it. They made the brick there. And there's a story that the brick just came in and that's where they stored it. But this was the horse barn for the teams of the operation. Okay? So here's a picture, overhead view of the pictures of what this thing looked like. So you had 2 river bridges. You had the Renova Bridge and you had the railroad bridge. The railroad came across and horseshoed around up on top of where the smelter was. The smokestack right there, the big barn that still exists right there, the horse barn that I just showed you a picture of.
Oh, that's
right
what
there.
that is. Oh.
And the railroad, you can still see some of the railroad bed if you read the card. This is still there, that's still there. This grade from here is still there. Okay, and this is a settling pond, but I'm not sure. There's 2 different ideas on this. I think it was either a settling pond for the operation or the farmers and ranchers were using this to take the excess water run down the country. Parrot Ditch, the original Parrot Ditch is right here. Okay. So in the future, after this operation shuts down, the farmers and ranchers buy the ditch, form the Parrot Ditch Company. They end up putting a tunnel through the hill. Instead of going like this, or like this, there's a tunnel through this hill for irrigation. There's today's picture of the ditch, but it used to be a wood flume coming around a point of rocks. Just above this is the Indian cave. Right? So what happened here? What happened is they spent, I don't know what kind of money they spent, but in that time it was a lot of money. And it didn't last. And why didn't it last? Well, there was 2 things. About every 10 years, 10 to 12 years in Montana and in the country of the United States, we had a financial panic. Well, about the time this was getting going, there was a panic. But also, I think the worst thing that happened is the Parrot Ditch. Let me see. I'm going to go back. This thing is a new ditch. hanging on a hillside. Not only here, but all the way around the point of rocks. And so you turn water into a new ditch and it wasn't sealed up, it washed out. So I think the biggest deal here is there was a lot of washout to start with. Then they realized, and nobody ever thought of this, but how do you keep water running in a ditch all year round to generate power and it's 40 below? It didn't work. So it was a not reliable source of power, okay? This thing has to operate all year round. It has to be efficient, has to operate all year round, and I think that's mostly what did it in, was the washouts and the keeping of the ditch full of water in 40 below winter time. Didn't really work, okay? So what happened is, there's two stories. I haven't really investigated the stories myself. When I get time, I might get to it. But the story is Clark came in, bought all the machinery, had some convicts tear it out, shipped it over here someplace. Don't know. The other story is Daly did it. Don't know. So anyway, it left. All I know is you go out there in the foundation and there's big bolts in the floor where there was all kinds of machinery, and it's gone. And the smokestack was blown down, and the only building left is this and the horse barn. So this is the story of the Parrot. It tried to, it took several years to build it, and then it took a year or two to decide that it wasn't going to work. and then it took a few years to tear it down and move it. Anyway, we're going back to Bozeman, Montana with Ignatius, okay? Ignatius ends up being pretty well off, and he ends up, this orphan boy ends up owning a bank in Bozeman, Montana. And this is the corporation papers for the Commercial Exchange Bank of Bozeman, Montana. And Ignatius right there is one of the major shareholders in this bank, along with other people. This guy happens to be involved in the coal mine with him. Some of these other names you'll find on papers that are, either patent and mining claims or bank stuff or water rights or other things. Some of these other names show up. Anyway, it's just the history. So this ends up being one of the first bank pictures of the Commercial Bank of Bozeman, Montana. And if you go, here's what's funny. You go inside the U.S. Bank today in Bozeman, Montana, this bank is inside of it.
Oh, wow.
So here's the story. 1893, that bank was started in 1892. 1893, they had a big financial panic. Commercial Bank, Bozeman, Montana was the only bank to stay open. Stories Bank got closed down. There was a couple other bank owners in Bozeman, Montana. And this is the only bank to stay open. And probably two reasons. It kind of had its own economy in Bozeman, Montana. Coal mines, agriculture, a lot of things going on, but I don't know why the other banks went, but anyway, this is the only one still. So they absorbed this bank absorbed some of the assets and liabilities of the other bank that closed down. If you go in the bank today, there's a big glass cage, and this will tell you right here. This deal will tell you right here. If you go in the bank today, you can look at this. And this is a big balance beam scale, Boston, Massachusetts. I think the day on it, the year on it's in the early 1800s. So this is a scale. This is weighing gold and silver. Back then, that's what we were on, you guys, gold and silver, right? So this is how we did business back then. Anyway, this is a big enclosed case in the U.S. Bank today in Bozeman, Montana. So it was absorbed into the Commercial Bank of Bozeman, Montana. it's got a big story here about Nelson Storage Bank, but you gotta tell the rest of the story, okay? Anyway, so I think that, if you can see that, I don't know what it's telling you, but, it's a, it has a date on here, 1817, that scale, all right? So anyway, there's today's bank, and there's the bank that's inside of it. My daughter and I went there not too long ago talking to a guy. He says the coal chutes are still in the basement.
Oh, wow.
Of course.
So anyway, Joseph ends up, this is an orphan boy, he ends up being the 7th chairman of the Montana Banking Association. He got a speech by him, 1911 speech. I guess back then they went yearly at a time for the presidency, so he ends up being, he owned banks in Bozeman. He was the president of the bank in Fromberg, Montana, and he also a shareholder in Red Light Bank. So, you know, for an orphan boy, he became a pretty well-known character. Right? So later on in life, he ends up with 4 boys and 3 girls. One of the girls, the youngest girl, marries a farmer, come up out of California. They farmed on the Parrot Bench. Josephine Marie. Then there was Aunt Mamie and Ida. And Ida was a school teacher. She taught in what was Montana, wasn't state yet, but it was turned into Montana State College. She was a teacher. Mamie ended up down in California being the clerk and recorder in California, a county in California, Long Beach County, California. Right. So 4 boys, okay. One boy, he stayed in the banking business. The other 3 didn't want anything to do with the banking business. So Ignatius had been purchasing ground 1903, Whitehall area. This ground for the Parrot Silver and Copper Company became the Parrot Ranch Company. And what was going on in the area, around this area right here, back in the hills, is all kinds of homesteads, patented homesteads of people. Back in the hills, every spring of water had homestead. There's all kinds of names and all kinds of homesteads that are associated with people in the valley. The Shaw Homestead, the Westfall Homestead, the Cowdery Homestead. All kinds of people are associated with all those homesteads. But also what was going on at the same time period, you were in the early 1900s to the 1930s. Though, you know, you had droughts, you had all kinds of things going on, financial panics. A lot of the homesteaders were going for the better jobs of the Industrial Revolution. So you were picking up ground for, I think Grandpa was $13 an acre when he bought his, or Ignatius when he bought his first piece of ground. But it also got cheaper because of the panics and the droughts. So sometimes the homesteaders would just leave and you'd pick it up for the taxes. So what happened was, anyway, Ignatius, with a couple of his boys formed Kountz Company, and they got in the sheep business. And that was what was going on. The homesteaders were going out, the sheep ranchers were coming in. And that was just what was, and there was a lot of sheep in the Madison Valley, Jefferson Valley, Gallatin Valley was a sheep for a while. Okay. So then it all became, this is a picture of my Aunt Betty. I don't know how she's in her teens.
Betty Hennessy.
Betty Hennessy, in Montana. Anyway, the barn, excuse me. This barn ends up being a feedlot, okay? Wind breaks on a feedlot. This barn is still there. Okay, this is my daughter, Lacey. Okay, she's the 5th generation of Ignatius. Lacey started, and these are all my grandkids, so that's the 6th generation, okay? So here's the barn that's left, the horse barn, that's since been spiffed up a little bit. This is the inside of what it looks like, the horse mangers, big timbers. These are all fir timbers. They're about 3 or 4 inches thick, and they're only like not even a foot apart. So the floor, the upstairs, the upstairs was a hayloft and a granary that had drops into the mangers. Here are the drops. Dropped hays down into the manger. Had grain troughs. These is where they. I don't have a picture, I don't think, but out on the edge of the stalls were big rods sticking out where they hung the harness to harness the teams. Right? There's the grain box, and that happens to be a hollow deal that drops grain out of the granary upstairs into that box. So this is the building that's still left. My daughter, one of my daughters back there, we used to lamb sheep against when she was real little. The other daughter wasn't you weren't old enough, Lacey, right? For the sheep deal. Anyway, she decided she'd clean all the sheep shit out of this and made it the Copper K barn out in Whitehall, Montana. All right, so it's an event venue out in Whitehall, Montana. A lot of history. There's a picture of the modern day Blue Sunlight Mine. And just across the river on this point of rocks is the old Parrot, Silver, and Copper Temple. That's what it looks like today inside. You've got a chandelier and a big dance floor. All the sheep shit is gone.
My grandson's wedding was there last summer.
It's gone. But it's still preserving history. This building is 128 years old, I think.
It's quite a fabulous building.
The end.